Alright, take 245. My name is Ross Rumsey. This is EDAD 831, Social Foundations, Assignment 3. I'm making a video where I'm comparing and contrasting government's role in education between now versus the indoctrination of the common school by Horace Mann. I have three different parts that I want to break down on how it was addressed, or why there was a need for a common, or why Horace Mann felt the need for a common school, and how those needs are similar or how they're different today. The first one would be the stem of the huge population increase or the immigration issue. When Horace Mann first introduced his common school idea, there was an influx of Irish Catholic people that were taking a lot of the low skill positions and creating a lot of social unrest. They were not welcome because they were taking jobs that and working at lower pay and really having an adverse effect on the economy and a lot of people that were comfortable before they came. And that's similar, I think, to today. We're having politicians putting a majority of their platform on whether or not to close the borders with Mexico because of a huge influx of illegal immigrants crossing the border and taking jobs away from Americans, albeit low-skilled positions that are similar to the positions that the Irish Catholics were taking away back in the early 1800s. So I think the education idea is similar today, or the purpose behind it is to stop eliminating the competition for competing for low-skilled jobs and start making a larger population of skilled workers and creating more positions where we need more skilled workers. Now, Horace Mann's idea of educating more people, he ultimately had the idea of creating a more informed workforce that would create ingenuity and inventiveness, that would create more need for more skilled work. They didn't necessarily have the case, and that kind of leads me to the next one. It's to address the industrialization, the issue of industrialization. When the Industrial Revolution hit the United States, we had a huge influx of people coming from the cottage industry, where agriculture was their main source of income, and now they were supplementing their income with producing products where they took raw materials and went through the whole process in pushing out finished products and giving them back to merchants. Well, the Industrial Revolution eliminated the need for the cottage industry. It actually inspired a whole movement on a new type of worker that was more conscientious of time and productivity. And education in Horace Mann's Horace Mann's movement was to but to kind of create a new generation of workforce that would fit this new industrial need. Today is similar. The technology is in computers and information, whereas previously, the Industrial Revolution, the technology was in machinery. But yet the issues are the same, where today's industrial worker was like the cottage industry worker in the early 1800s. They were accustomed to a certain way of life, and technology has changed it to where now we have to learn new skills. That's where the similarities stop. I believe that the Industrial Revolution worker created a productive minded, easily trainable employee that was needed at the time. Where today, I think it still makes the same product. When I'm talking education makes the same product where we're making a informed student, but I don't think the final product is the same. We are making a time conscientious student that is taught to meet deadlines, to understand mathematics and reading and writing. But as far as being trained for the workforce, I'm taking another class right now where we're talking about how today's students are not being taught for the new economy, where we're pushing out students to become college students, and college students are coming out ill-prepared for the workforce. And I think that is interesting, because we started with Horace Mann's education system creating better workers leaving school because of their work habits, and now education is creating better students, not so much better workers. The last sector, or the last topic, we're comparing and contrasting Horace Mann's education to today's, is the purpose for narrowing the income gap. The poverty rates are areas of high poverty usually correlate with high crime or high alcoholism or vices that are not normally accepted by society. And that was similar to the early 1800s, where when the major port cities, Philadelphia, New York, and I have them all written down. Let's see here. Anyway, the major port cities had a huge influx in population, and that was because of the maritime trade allowed for a lot of people to find work, and there's a lot of money to be made, but there was a large gap between the ones that were making a lot of money and those that were working a lot, and the wealth gap was huge. And Horace Mann thought he could fight that wealth income gap with higher education. The idea was, and some still hold it today, that there's a finite amount of wealth, and certain people have a certain percentage of it. And Horace Mann kind of thought, well, we can start leveling out who gets leveling out where more people have an equal share of the pie. But he knew that throughout his findings in his 12 years as a Secretary of Education, that the gap wasn't necessarily closing as fast as most people anticipated when he first said that his education system would make better workers and increase more wealth, and the more wealth you had, that everybody had, the better the society would be. And that made the workers more interested in the system. Well, he started changing his tune to different types of wealth, where the wealth gap is actually closing, but not as fast as people would like, but they're getting a new type of wealth. There's an intrinsic value on the knowledge that they're gaining of being a more valued citizen based off of the knowledge they acquire through his education system. Today, we have this. It's similar in that we have a wealth gap. There is a 1% that has a large share of the world's wealth, and there's people that believe that it's the income inequality is great, and if we have a better education system, the poor will educate themselves out of poverty. And I think the education system right now is designed to put as many teachers as they can of higher quality in those poverty areas of town to try to increase test scores, increase education levels to where they can achieve higher skilled jobs and increase their wealth. I don't know if that is I know that's the idea behind it. I don't know if that's the result we're getting. As I mentioned earlier, I think the education system is driven on results, standardized test results, get everybody, all the students up to a higher excuse me, a higher standard, which is great, and I'm all for. But I know for the 3 schools I was involved with, the high school I attended and the 2 schools I taught, it was driven to get people into college. The high school curriculum was designed to give you so many hours required to make you accepted by the largest number of universities, whether it's take so many foreign language or so many math courses and so on. And I think that is changing. I think we're seeing the development of schools, career academies, where we're seeing students going into fields where are starting earlier. Their technical training is beginning in high school, and schools and school improvement plans are starting to direct students towards their interest level, and that's a happy change, and I want to be a part of that movement, and I think that's where it's a little bit different. And that's where I'm comparing, and I see a lot of similarities between the role of education, or the perception of education, between Horace Mann's need to make society more equal on as many playing fields as possible, and I see it similar, the idea used similar today, but I also think that the results are interestingly different, where we're not getting, I know I already said, I just want to close it out. We're getting workers that are ready for the workforce in early 1800s through education, and it wasn't the design, it was more to inspire more innovative thought. And now we're getting workers that we want to get ready for the workforce, and we're making them less prepared for today's society, whether it's technology related or whatnot. But anyway, I'm going to move on. I'm taking up a lot of time there. We're going to talk a little bit about addressing the current status of teacher expectations, and we're going to look at the pros and cons. For teacher accountability to feel that making teachers accountable would translate to marginal teachers leaving profession. I researched a study done by a Diana Steffen. She did her doctorate paper on evaluating teachers' opinion on merit pay, and she did her study in Mississippi. She had studied 4 different schools, 2 schools in the southern part and 2 schools in the northern part. She had 2 schools in each part that had different demographics in their economic status. One was from a higher poverty rate area, and the other one was from a higher income level. And her findings stated that regardless of experience, whether they were beginning teachers, 0 to 5 years experience, experienced teachers, or whether they were in a high poverty rate school district or not. The overall consensus she found was the teachers did not have a huge problem with, or they were indifferent to the merit increases, which surprised me. When I saw that, I figured that the results would dictate a large discrepancy among teacher opinions based off the students that they taught. So for the first pro, for teachers accountability, feel that teachers accountable would translate into marginal teachers leaving the profession. I don't know if that definitely correlates to Diane's study. It kind of correlates to early educator standards when Horace Mann wanted to change the education of educators, because typically they were upstanding citizens, didn't always have the highest level of education, but the early educators were dressed to the nines, they were role models, and they were teaching citizenship just in their actions. Where today, if we used that example, there are some teachers out there that are thinking it's a safe job, and if they're not going to get paid based off their merits, but they are in a school district where you know what, I gotta stop right there. Hopefully I can edit that. I'm gonna cut my time right there, because I'm kind of counterproducing myself. The pro of teacher accountability feel that they're making teachers accountable would translate into marginal effective teachers leaving the profession. It really doesn't correlate to Diana Steffen's findings. She said regardless of teachers' location, they didn't necessarily disagree with the opinion. I think that reinforced the idea that teachers majority have an intrinsic desire to be an educator. So yes, I think there would be some loss, but the majority of teachers are doing it not for pay or for security. They're doing it because they love it, and they don't feel that their performance, if they fail their students, they probably feel that they should leave as well. And I don't think that's a bad teacher. I think that's a caring teacher that cares too much. Cons: those opposed to teacher accountability feel that it's unfair to tie teacher evaluation test scores to teachers whose work with students differ in skills and abilities. The second study I found talked about the quality of teachers' results based off of their education. So if a teacher scored higher on an SAT or a praxis, they typically earned higher marks. Their students scored higher marks, but the study also indicated that those teachers with higher marks had more options on where they went to school, so they were teaching in districts that had more advantages than others. So to combat this, they gave incentives to teachers that taught in lower poverty areas that had trouble with test scores, and the incentives would be to forgive student loans, or to give significant signing bonuses or retention bonuses. And they found that under this system, it retained teachers in the same position for a longer time. So tying teachers to student scores when students have differing abilities can be used in a positive manner if used the right way. I mean, the obvious statement right there would indicate that every teacher is given a random draw of where they teach, and all of their students are of similar education levels, and it's the teacher that ultimately is responsible for the grade. And this study says the teacher is a very small part of the student's learning, but getting educators to areas that need as many resources as possible is the important part. So that con of evaluating teachers could be used as a positive in that matter. So I've taken up a lot of time and I've rambled. Hopefully I can edit this. My computer's pretty old, so if you need to fast forward through parts of it, I completely understand. I appreciate you watching and I look forward to your comments. So have a great day and go Warriors!